Remote online notarization is now legal in the state of Oklahoma, and COVID-19 has fast-tracked the adoption of it. Today, we have special guest Kristi French from American Eagle Title Insurance Company to share her experience becoming an online notary and how that's working today.
Remote online notarization. Sign me up.
Welcome back to Talking Real, brought to you by the Oklahoma Association of Realtors. This is episode 134 of Talking Real, back in the studio with your hosts, Jeff and Nabil. Nabil, how's your day?
Do you even have to ask?
It is that good. I know it. It's a fantastic day, especially here in the Talking Real studio.
That's right.
I'm super excited. I know I say that every week.
I guess we're just super excited every week.
Every week we're super excited. This is a great week. We got a special guest. That we've brought in to talk about remote online notarization.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to get to that.
I know we've been kind of brainstorming this for a while, and it's good to get a firsthand view of remote online notarization.
Absolutely. But before we get there, real quick, we want to make sure that you remember that we have our annual conference coming up, a fully digitized version of the annual conference where we will break through and talk about some new and exciting things. A lot of great sessions planned. We're going to have a live Talking Real, talking about the future of real estate and so much more. You can find out that information by going to OARconference.com and get signed up there. It's going to be, I think, a fantastic experience that you won't want to miss.
That's right. And we have a couple more virtual town halls coming up with our congressional delegation.
Yes.
So get that information at OKRealtors.com/events.
Yes.
And sign up for those as well. Those are all very informational.
Absolutely.
It's fun listening into those.
Yeah. They're, an hour or less, and get some really interesting information relevant to your industry directly from our congressional delegation. So check that out. Yeah. It's pretty valuable. You get some of that behind the scenes inside what's going on there. So check it out.
Yeah.
Now let's get in. We've got Kristi French, who is with American Eagle Title. She's here to talk about remote online notarization. She herself is a remote online notary and has done a few of those, and is going to talk about some of the nuts and bolts and what they've experienced in their title company and how that's working for them.
Yep. So let's do it.
Jump right in. We're joined here on Talking Real with another guest, and Nabil, I'm very excited about this, to talk about remote online notarization today, because we are joined today by Kristi French, who is with the American Eagle Title Insurance Company, and she is the Vice President of Agency Services. So Kristi, welcome to Talking Real. We are very happy to have you with us today.
Thanks so much for inviting me today. I'm super excited to join you.
Good. Yeah, so we've been dealing with remote online notarization here in the state of Oklahoma recently as we got that legislation passed to make it legal. And so we wanted to bring you in and talk about it a little bit from the title side and lending side, and maybe having some closings done. So first of all, though, we would like to talk a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do. So share with our listeners a little bit about your background and what you do for a living.
Oh, goodness. I hate talking about myself, but okay, since you asked me, I'll do it.
You're forced. You're stuck in the studio. The door is locked. You got to talk about yourself.
So I've been with ATEC for about 16 years. I've done anything from the order desk to abstracting to doing a little bit of examination to title insurance underwriting, title reports, policies, and now I have the pleasure of teaching title insurance to realtors and to any type of agent, to title agents, to closing agents, or to anybody who wants to listen to me, really.
So this is a great vessel for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll provide the medium for sure. Well, that's fantastic. So you've got quite a bit of experience in the title world, and
I started when I was in diapers,
abstracting and all that. That's fantastic. So you guys have adopted remote online notary within your agency, your company there. So, and you actually yourself are a registered online notary.
Yes, I am.
So I guess let's start there and give us a little rundown, because we've talked sort of high level about remote online notarization as we've had that legislation passed and everything, but we haven't really got into the nuts and bolts day to day of what that looks like. So for somebody who is a notary that wants to become, or maybe they're not a notary but wants to become an online notary, what does that process look like in terms of getting approved, since you've actually been through it? I haven't been through it myself. I'm not a notary.
Me neither.
Well, it's actually like a separate commission. So even though you might be a notary, you do have to be commissioned separately through the Secretary of State. And so it's an extra $25, which is a minimal fee to provide that level of service to your clientele. So, and it was super easy. I think I applied online and I filled it out all online. I paid for it online, and then they sent me an email the next day saying I was approved. And I was like, sweet, this is awesome.
Thorough background check.
Right. So, well, when COVID hit, the RON laws passed in January of this year, and everybody was kind of scared of it. It was something new. It really wasn't even needed. And then we hit this whole COVID-19 thing, and then everybody tried to apply at once. And the Secretary of State is actually in the building that I work in.
Okay.
And just like in like the water cooler talk, they're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but if you could just slide mine in quicker, that'd be great.
Maybe that's how you got approved in a day.
That's right. But no, they said that the amount of applications were so crazy that they could barely keep up with it. So people did complain about the timing of COVID happening and then everybody trying to apply at once, and it being so new to even the Secretary of State. It was hard for them to, I guess, have the manpower to approve everybody's applications. So there was some time then where it might have taken a couple of weeks for you to get approved, depending on how, and when you applied.
Wow.
So I did hear some kind of backlash on that, but I think the Secretary of State is all caught up, and it shouldn't be a problem now if you want to be approved.
That's good.
I'm assuming, or I could be assuming wrong, you have to be a regular notary or an in-person notary before becoming an online notary?
So that I am not for sure, but when I do things, I like to do things big. So I was never even a notary before I became a RON. So
Okay.
I do believe that you do have to become just a normal commission notary first, because that was my first step. And I did this a couple months ago. And so I applied, and then literally after I was approved for that one, I applied for my RON.
Okay.
So I do believe that you have to be a notary first, and that's probably why I did it like that.
I think that's correct. I think
That would make
if I
sense.
remember correctly,
Yeah.
I think that is correct. So
my first notarization that I ever did was a RON. Even before a wet ink signature notary type of thing. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this big. Let's go.
yeah.
Let's start with new.
So my understanding too is that there's some requirements for, it has to be a secure portal and platform that you're using. So how have you handled that? Are you signed up with a particular platform, or do you have multiple that you can do that through? What are you guys doing?
So we have signed up through a specific vendor, which was Doc Verify. With your title insurance underwriters, they probably have 3 to 4 to 5 vendors that are approved through. We signed up through Doc Verify because they let you actually be the notary, where I think Notarize and some other platforms, they have to use their notaries. So you have to sign up through their platform and use their notaries that you're not familiar with. So I did a lot of research, and I was like, okay, Doc Verify is going to be the one for me because I can actually act as a notary. So if I were to be closing loans, then mostly my agents that would come in would be familiar with me and feel comfortable instead of signing on with somebody that they don't even know. So
Interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So walk us through then, now that you've got your RON notary license, your certificate or commission.
PDF.
Word there. Yeah, PDF. Yeah. And then, so now you said your first notarization
I know,
you ever
isn't it
did.
just wild?
I think that's fantastic.
I don't know why they picked me, but they're like, go ahead, French. This is all you. I'm like, okay.
So how did that actually work then? You've got your platform, Doc Verify. What would a consumer see, and how does it work from your end? Just how does that process work actually doing an online notarization?
Well, through DocVerify, it's kind of like a platform, and you get to pay for like your subscription each month. So you pay for your subscription, you pay for your kind of like, I guess, tokens or users. So with every single document, it's either like a package, it could be a closing package, or it could be a single document. So there's different costs to that. So you kind of have to always, number one rule, know your transaction. What do you want to do? So are you just signing a POA for somebody, or are you signing a whole closing packet? So when I signed up, I think there's an extra $100 to be a doc-verified, like, notary. So, like, I'm holding that separate commission to where other people, like, through that platform specifically, so people outside of my company could contact me if they needed help with the notarization.
Gotcha. So kind of like the other platforms where they were bringing in someone else.
Right.
You're just kind of in the stable of notaries that are available.
Yes.
That if somebody, okay,
Nice.
cool.
So, like, a really cool thing was that Oklahoma was kind of, I think we were first 5 states to approve raw notarization. So I'm like, oh, wow, we're on the forefront of something. This is great. But another thing that is really important to the notarization process is there's 2 things that kind of tie it together. So are the signatures electronic, and is the notary electronic? So we also passed another law called the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, to where you can accept electronic signatures. So that's way different than notaries. So the fact that we have both of those working for us in our state is fantastic, and it'll help the lenders in the long run as well.
You'd almost have to have the electronic signatures approved to do online notary, just because they kind of go hand in hand. So yeah.
So we were kind of on the forefront of that, being that we already have the UETA Act passed, to where the RON was going to be easily implemented.
Nice.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to go, say a closing, right,
Okay.
and we're going to do an online notarization, what is a consumer doing? Like how is that actually working when they go through that process? Like are they just sitting at home on their computer and the documents are in front of them, and are they seeing a video of you,
So
or
there's a couple
what's going on
ways
there?
that you can do it. We actually allow papering out as well, which is really nice. So you could actually, print out your documents, maybe a PDF, and mail them to whomever. Maybe they're up in Wyoming or something, or if they have COVID and they can't come to closing, they can actually receive their documents in the mail, and they can electronically sign them. So there's where that act comes into play, and then you could actually like scan them and then upload them to be signed by an electronic notary. So we call that type pretty much papering out, which is also legal here in Oklahoma, to where some states that is not legal. Or you can do everything kind of like a native e-document, which is something that I like, because I still think, oh, that's so silly to print it off, sign it, then scan it, and then, right? So, but some people still want to do that, and that is fine. And so the fact that we have adopted to where that's still applicable, it's great.
Yeah, kind of like ease people into the process.
Right. So the papering out is just fine with me, but I would just generally like to do a native e-document to where it's created digitally, sent digitally, signed digitally, and notarized digitally.
So does DocVerify then, in this case, your platform, you've got your closing packet. So you can pull that up electronically. You're on there. The person who's signing is on there. They can electronically sign through that platform, and then you immediately notarize it through that platform.
So what's really nice is that the Secretary of State really gave us kind of stuff to go by. Like, you have to have authentication. You have to make sure that they pass all these things before the notary can even log in to sign. So it's kind of like an ID verification process, to where they ask you, when you're signing up for anything nowadays, they ask you those crazy questions like, what's your mother's dog's middle name?
Right. And it's like, which one of these addresses have you lived at?
Yeah.
It's almost like they did a little bit of a background check or a credit check or something, and it asks you some of those things.
So it's called KBA. So it's going to be your credit or financial history that's kind of worked into whatever platform that you choose. So, and that's why it's so key when you sign up for a platform that they do that, because it is a requirement through our state. So some platforms might not have all the requirements that an Oklahoman will have to meet for it to be actually legal.
Legitimate legal notary.
Yeah, so we kind of had to do our research to figure out, okay, this one doesn't comply, this one does comply, and let's go to the next step.
Okay, that's cool. So it's not just right there's an impression, and I've heard stories that maybe early on people thought you could do this.
Oh yeah, I would love to
we're just gonna
FaceTime
jump on
you, to
FaceTime.
Skype or whatever, but that's not going to be illegal. It's not going to be something that maybe a title insurance underwriter will insure, because they'll ask those questions to you when you're trying to purchase title insurance and make sure that you did use the correct means to have this done.
So when you're issuing the title insurance policy, because there's all these different moving parts, right? You've got the title insurance and the lenders and everything else, but starting with just because as far as purchase transactions go, right? Our people are out there and they've been using electronic signatures for years now. That's nothing new. But the notarization is very different. So when you're doing title insurance, are pretty much all the title insurance companies willing to accept online notarization now? So they jumped on pretty quick.
Yes. I felt like we kind of had to in a way, but we have stricter regulations to make sure that everything is met and able to insure. Otherwise, there might be exception on your policy, and to where some lenders might not approve that exception in their underwriting.
That would not be good.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you're fully covered.
So I think most of the underwriters do have Doc Verify, Notarize, and I can't remember the third one. It's on the tip of my tongue. Maybe I'll remember it later in this conversation. But there's 3 or 4 of them that have been vetted and that are approved through most of your national underwriters and your underwriters like me we call ourselves a mid-cap or a locally and state-owned underwriter. So.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So in this short period of time that remote online notarization has been legal and that you've been one, have you seen the process evolve and change? Or especially due to like COVID, I think that fast-tracked it into acceptance. But have you seen anything change? Well,
the first couple ones that I've done, it's easier when you have somebody on the receiving end that's technology capable of accepting the invite, looking through the ID verification, taking a picture of themselves. They literally have to hold up their ID to the camera, and I record the whole thing. And like, if you have somebody on the other end that's not very technically capable, it's super hard. So I had one, and the person, you have to be a U.S. citizen. So that is like a big thing. Where was it? I think they were in Puerto Rico, and she had like a parrot on her shoulder or something. But she was an older lady, and it was just hard for me to get her to keep her face in the picture. I kept having to tell her, please make sure that you're centered on the cam. I can't see you anymore. So there's things like that it would be nice if we could talk to them beforehand and kind of vet them to say, you will have to do this when we're recording. Otherwise, the notary will fail and we'll have to log back in again. So a really neat thing with Doc Verify is that when they take a picture of you and take a picture of like your ID, if you like kind of hover over it, it'll tell you like their feelings. Like it's like 98% calm, 5% like anxious.
Oh, that's wild.
So like it does this like complete like facial recognition like check like for your emotions too. I'm like, okay, it's a Monday, please don't check my emotions. Oh, today's Tuesday.
Right.
So it's like it's
60% confused.
So that's why like these platforms are so like needed, because if you're just doing FaceTime or Skype, it won't be recorded and kept in your journal for 10 years like state statute mandates, and it won't be legal. Yeah. So that's why it's like really important to make sure that your notary is really commissioned and they know what they're doing. Because I could have signed up to be an electronic notary, but didn't know what I was doing, and I could be Skyping all day long.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, that's not good.
That's wild that they do like that facial check recognition. Like, whew.
That's interesting.
That'd be cool.
So I've heard a story or some anecdotal evidence that one of the big hurdles in just broad adoption of online notarization is with lenders, that they're having to change some of their processes and forms. Has that been your experience as well, as far as real estate closings are going, that we got to get the lenders on board? Is that one of the sort of bottlenecks?
Yes. So e-closing, e-notes, e-mortgages, they're not new, but selling them in the secondary market has become like maybe troublesome, or kind of, local lenders they don't have the capabilities of doing that.
Interesting.
So they don't have the technology, not that they couldn't afford one, but everything happens so fast that they're just kind of like trying to hurry up. And is Fannie Mae on board? Is Freddie Mac on board? Is this federally okay? Because I believe that there is a couple of items that they pass on the federal level just so that smaller lenders or local lenders could, do e-mortgages or e-notes during this COVID-19 period. And just because that they're okay by doing it doesn't mean that they have the technology or the means to do so.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm sure we'll start to see more adoption of it.
Yeah.
And like I said, COVID has absolutely fast-tracked adoption of it, where the remote online notarization passed, and and there was no big hurry to sign up, because like you mentioned, that it wasn't needed, required, right?
Right.
It maybe could be useful in some cases, but in terms of it actually, people looking at it saying, no, we have to do that. And then COVID hits, and it's like, no, we absolutely have to start doing this. So, I think that will be good to see some expansion of that. So we do have then, Freddie and Fannie, they're getting on board with it as well.
Yes. So I actually went on their website this morning to Freddie Mac's e-mortgage site, so I could kind of read up on it before I met with you guys today. And they're on board, and they have tons of information on their website. If any lenders were to be listening to this, that probably could help them along the way. It's still just really new. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody would love to do it. They just don't know how, or they don't have the technology to do it.
Right.
And then plus all the training to go in that, it could be months down the road before, even if they bought the application, to actually implement it within their own shop.
Right. Yeah. Right. Do the training, make sure everybody's up to speed on it. Yeah. Well, and like you said, it even at this point, it's not even half, or it's probably not even a quarter of the states, I don't think, that even have it legalized within each state. And so getting that expanded will be part of the issue as well. Like you said, there were some adoption of it federally, and a lot of states passed some emergency provisions to allow for those kinds of things.
Yeah, and a lot of those are coming up and expiring August 31st. So I'm kind of excited to see, are they going to extend that again, or are they just going to finally try and get something passed?
Yeah.
We'll find out next week.
Yeah. So for your consumers within your company, the consumers that have been using the online notarization and online closing and all that, have you had good reviews? Are people really liking that process?
The customers seem to really like it. The agents seem to really like it, because they're like, I didn't know what I'm going to do, but I'm so glad that you could execute this document for me. So it's kind of been a saving grace in some really sticky situations, to where we didn't think that we were going to get the deal done or the transaction closed because one of our borrowers had COVID-19, and his lock was going to expire if he didn't come in and sign this document, or the seller has COVID-19. They can't sign the deed to the happy new homeowner. What do we do? Do we really wait 2 weeks after the quarantine period's up? I'm like, no, we'll just do it remotely.
Yeah.
So it's been really nice to have that available to our customers and the consumers.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I know we had a closing on a personal property during COVID-19, and it was like, well, we'll give you the documents ahead of time if you can print them out and sign them, but you've got these 3 you have to come in and notarize. And we did it in the car. So we sat in the car, somebody came out.
Closing.
Yeah, we did the drive-through closing. So somebody came out, we signed in front of them, looked at our IDs, took those in and everything. And so we got it done, but had that, again, it was 3 signatures that needed to be notarized. Yeah. So if we had the opportunity to just do it from home, that would have been preferred, rather than having to,
you could have just done it on your smartphone or your tablet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So That's where we're at now, though. We're getting there. Next time we sell a property, maybe we'll be able to just do that online.
Step-by-step process.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, and then you could be at home and notarize it for us. And
That's
we'll be
right.
at home and sign it. So I think it's a great process. So that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that it's working.
It is. It is working. There has been some troubles, just with the actual person. Like I said, logging in and making sure that because when I log in and I hit record, I specifically state, okay, nobody's holding you against your will. They don't have some type of gun behind them, holding them, selling their property, and they understand what they're doing. So I try to act just as the notary. So I specifically say, if you have any questions on the documents that you're signing, please contact your title company, your closer or your agent, and they will know the questions that you want to ask. So specifically, this transaction that I'm logging on with you is just to be notarized.
Right.
So
they can't ask you for advice and those.
Right. I
It's
try
purely for the
to
signature.
separate that completely, just to make sure that the closing agent and the realtor or the agent are totally involved with their transaction, because they could ask me something about, am I getting a check back at closing? Don't ask me those questions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm so sorry.
I'm just your notary.
And
Yes.
this is just a one-to-one process, right? It's not someone else can't be kind of listening to answer that question. You have to be like, hey,
Yes,
go
we
refer
could
to
all
them.
log in
Okay.
together if you wanted, but the ones that I have done, it's just been me and the person signing.
Okay.
Interesting.
So if they had a question, they could ask it right there.
Yes.
And they could be like, okay, I'm still
So
here to
that would
notarize.
be a full closing process, is that we could all log in together for, it's called a whole package in Doc Verify, rather than just a document being signed.
Okay.
That makes
That's
sense.
nice. That
Okay.
capabilities there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the closer could log in and
They
be a part of
could.
that and go through
Yeah.
it. Very cool.
Yeah. So you had said something about them being on screen, and if they move off, you have to tell them to come back on.
Yes.
Is
Well-
there a time limit that they have? Sometimes people sway out. Is there some sort of timeout where you're like, nope, we got to start over?
No, not really a time limit. I just like to be able to see them when I'm notarizing them, because of the rules that the Secretary of State set up. And I do have to record it the whole time, and I have to keep my journal for 10 years. So what's cool about a platform is that they keep it for you.
Yeah.
So I don't have this big O thing on my computer bogging me down. So that's why signing up with a vendor is so important, because they do that authentication process, the ID verification, and they keep your records as a notary for 10 years. So
Yeah.
I'm that's worth it in itself.
That's fantastic. Very cool. Well, Kristi, we've kind of reached the end of our time frame here, and man, this has been super valuable to me to kind of see what's going on out there, how it's working, and that it is available. And I know many of our listeners will be excited to hear that.
And that
because
is being
it's-
adopted.
Yes,
Yes.
that it's expanding, it's being adopted, and it's going to just continue to be a more welcome option for people.
Yes.
So that's fantastic. Well, Kristi, thank you so much for joining us here on Talking Real. We appreciate you coming in and sharing your experience and your background. One more time, how can people get a hold of your company? Who are you with?
Oh.
Give us a little rundown there real quick before we close out as a reminder.
Yeah, and just one thing before I sign off here is that the county clerks have to record the e-notarized documents. We wrote it into the bill that they shall record. You know this, that means that they have to. I've heard some pushbacks in some smaller communities where the county clerks are refusing to record them.
Interesting.
So please be aware of that. And if you guys have problems with that, please contact your title company, because they'll more than likely know somebody maybe at the courthouse that could help you. So I've had some problems with that, but we're trying to work over that. But yeah, if you have any questions, just contact me. My name is Kristi French with American Eagle. Yeah, thanks for having me today.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Kristi. So it's great to hear that remote online notarization is coming to fruition, that we worked really hard here at the association to get that passed. I mean, that was something our government affairs committee and our board of directors and everybody here at the association pushed forward to really champion that legislation. It took us a couple years to get it done. It was one of those, we had to really start that process and get it going. And Oklahoma was one of the early states to adopt remote online notarization, and the foresight of having that done when COVID showed up.
Right.
Fantastic. So that now it's fast tracking the implementation.
I was just about to say the timing of that, I mean, couldn't have been better.
Absolutely. So if your local title company that you spend a lot of time with and work with hasn't moved into this remote online notarization, and you think it would be good for your clients and customers, send them a link to this episode so they can come online and they can hear what it's like, how that process works. They can even reach out to Kristi and ask her. I think she would be more than willing to answer some questions. So help that process advance by getting with your title companies. Send them this episode, ask what they're doing to get on board with remote online notarization to make sure that we can make that as consumer friendly and as available as possible. Now that we've got it passed, it's up to us to really push that out further to get people to sign up for it.
Take full advantage of it, right?
Absolutely.
I was like trying to think of the word utilization, advantage.
All those are good. Good options. Good options. So make sure you help us out with that. And so share this episode with everybody you can in the title world, the closing world, so that they can get on board with this online closing and notarization process.
That's right. And if you haven't done so yet, leave us a rating and write us a review. Those help just boost our morale.
Absolutely.
And help us get out in front of more people, but you know.
But it also makes us feel good. So help Jeff and Nabil feel good today by leaving a review. We appreciate that. And again, thank you so much for sharing and listening. And until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday on Talking Real.